Many requests we get for little techniques that make your finishing your job a lot easier. It's not a job, it's a joy. And one of the things is making a label. So I'm going to briefly go over what we've always taught. Unfortunately, I went to find my demo stuff, and there's been water damage in the store in the back room that we had no idea about. So we're going to make this quick, and some of the paper's not pretty. So when you're making your label, you want to create, design what you want to say. Now, there are lots of alternatives out there. There's already pre-printed labels. There's that sort of thing. There is a paper that you can use, like EQ printables that you can print up. You can print your message on the computer and then print it up directly onto the fabric. Please make sure you do a sample before you do that, because that particular stuff it's not inexpensive to use, but it is already treated, so you don't have to do anything extra to it. And I think you can find it on white and cream. How I do it, because I tend to make my labels are quite homemade, I create on the computer what I want it to say and how I want to format it, and then I print it off. And once I've printed it off, say perhaps it looks like this with my information. Your quilt is your piece of art, so you want to make sure that you designate the provenance of the quilt in your label. And that means when you made it, how you made it, a pattern that you followed, if anybody helped you with it, if it's hand quilted, machine quilted, and who did the machine quilting, and obviously a lovely message. If you've got an anecdote, if you want, it's a wedding quilt, you want to start with an anecdote at the top about being married. If it's a baby and you want to have a quote at the top about something like that. If you want to put in icons like balloons or hearts, or do something like that into your work. I'm not sure with this video if I can get Deb to add pictures later, but her brother's very talented. I'm sure we can do something. But I tend to make my labels their own little story, so that it says something about the whole process and the person I'm giving it to. Here's, again, you're going to have to forgive my mold on my paper, but here is another one that was done. And very often I will keep these and tuck them away in my done binder with my pictures of my projects that I have finished. But same idea. I did a quote on the bottom of that, but it has the year and why I made it or who helped me. So then once you have that, you're going to take a piece of fabric that you want to use. One of the things you want to make sure you're using something that doesn't have too much going on in the background, because you'll be surprised at how distracting that is, or how difficult it is to draw on, and how difficult it is to actually read in the end. So you can do tone on tones or textures or whatever, but definitely give it a test try first before you make your whole label, because you may not like the finished result if it isn't clear enough. So once you have the fabric that you're going to use, you're going to cut it down to a workable size, and you're going to iron freezer paper onto the back of it. Of course, my freezer paper has various colors of lead ink into it right now, but you're going to put the freezer paper onto the back of it. Okay, so you iron the shiny side onto the back of your fabric. Why? Because you want to stabilize it, because you're going to use those awesome pens. The reason you want to use the archival pens is because they don't bleed. They don't have acid in them. Acid causes yellowing later. So you can use these for scrapbooking, for your fabric. You can also use them on wood, but they come in different colors, and you're not going to get that acid later that eats into the fibers of what you painstakingly made. And they do them in different colors, so you can get them in black, brown, blue, all different colors. Usually the end of them is colored so you can see. They have different thicknesses. We just carry the 0-1 thickness. I find it easier to get. It's quite fine, and you can do a number of things with it. The other thing you can use on this label that you're doing is the markers to create color if you want, but then be aware of what you're using and whether or not, if it's archival, and whether or not it's going to have that acid issue. So once you have ironed on your fabric, and you've ironed it onto your freezer paper, and now you have your pen, you get yourself a light board. of some sort. It doesn't have to be a fancy light board. You can use a glass top table and put a light underneath it, or you can go up to your window, tape it onto the door and the window and let the sun shine through. And all you're going to do is copy. Using that pen, you're going to copy the letters. I do this. You don't have to do that, but I do it because I've already now got my spacing. I'm not going to run out of at the end of my page, so to speak. I'm going to have it centered the way I want it centered. Maybe it's my OCD. You can do whatever tickles your fancy and floats your boat. You can handwrite it or whatever, but once you have this fabric onto the freezer paper, you have a little bit more stability. All right. So then you're going to write on what you want on your label. You're going to write it on there. There are various labels out there that are already pre-made that you can also use and give yourself an idea of what you want to write in here and freehand it. Just wing it if you want. We have labels at the shop like so you can use something like that as well that has all your information on it that you're putting on it, but you're more than likely going to be winging it, or if you printed something on the computer, you want to make sure that it fits in that space, right? So now you've written on this. I'm just trying to find the one that I had done here. You're written on it, and it has freezer paper on the back. And now that you've written everything on it, you're going to pull your freezer paper off. You can save it. Freezer paper is reusable so many times. And now you have this ready to go. So how are you going to put this on your quilt? Well, you're going to take a piece of lightweight, fusible interfacing, the lightest that you can find, and you're going to sew that. Look at, I even have the threads on there to show you. You're going to sew that all the way around. You're going to sew it all the way around, and then you're going to trim off your corners. I only use them an 1/8 of an inch when I do this, and I'll tell you why in 1 second. And then once you're done sewing around, all the way around, you're not leaving a space, you're going to pull the interfacing out and you're going to cut a little slit in that. Then you're going to turn it out and you're going to poke in the holes, poke in the sides, make it nice and smooth. Don't iron it before you do this. That would be bad, because now your fusible side is facing out. All of your edges are turned under. Now you can take that, place it on the corner of your quilt that you want it to go on. Everybody has their own preference. There's no right or wrong. There's no quilt police. Put it on the corner that you want it to go on and press. And then all you have to do is go in and hand sew. If you were to pin this, you're going to get distortion. It's really hard to pin through the layers of your quilt, through the layers of this, to get it to stay, to get your edges curled under, to get them all just looking nice. But if you have that nice stitching there, you have very easy edges to deal with, and then you blind stitch all the way around this. And then, my friend, you are done. So it's a simple little extra couple of things you threw in there to make the job look far more professional, far more finished.